areas that we didn't expect. So, what we talked about with this lecture, Two for Tuesday, this is AM Exercise Drum Lecture Part 1, Drummaster Davey Demon Seymour. So, what we do is a lot of times we think, we have to get in there and really work the muscle a lot and overdo it. And we do, you're supposed to. You really are. But a lot of times we forget that there's certain grip techniques that can allow us to have more control over the stick. But with those techniques, sometimes you may get more fatigue throughout the stick or the wrist. So the stick may experience fatigue and break quicker, or the player may experience more fatigue and stress quicker. Stress quicker as in, feel it or make an error or a mistake. So what I found in the last 6 months, and I did this before, I've taught it before, and a lot of us have seen a lot of players do it before, but just for standard gripping, when you hold it in a match grip, and you're holding it, instead of just really gripping it too much like on a bike or a motorcycle where you're over gripping, say you're rolling through and you're holding it, what you're really going to do is you're going to pinch it more like that, and see how I'm shaking it and it's just flying in the air? That's a strike release technique. Strike release is a very good way of playing that gives you more freedom and it gives you more expression in your speed. So instead of doing this, I'm doing this, and you can already see it's moving faster. See how many more bounces in the air it gets as opposed to like that? You can already see the flutter quicker in the camera. So aerodynamically, you can see it if we were pretending those were wings, or if you were taking flight, that's funny. But if you think about it, if you hold it, look, it's slower, so it's like it's paddling slower. This is something we did forever, and we thought, man, if I'm really holding on to those sticks, I'm never going to drop them. Years ago, I did a video, and you could see that I was really playing good, but I really over-gripped the stick, and then I'd tend to lose grip because I'd get fatigue and experience the almost like, what do you call it, or phantom pain, where it gets in there and it's painful for a minute, and then it disappears or dissipates throughout your wrist area. So what we do is we practice on that, and if you see, my hands are actually open. So I watched myself playing the last couple days, and you can really see the free, and I'm doing this in the air just so when I'm talking it's not getting overcrowded with the voice, but you can actually see it floating better. And you can see I've choked up a little more too, so it gives me more boom or counterweight. What's boom or counterweight? That's the back or the butt of the stick. Sort of like a pendulum or a weight if you've ever seen a crane operate or a scale operate. If you've ever had to do measurements, or if you've ever done jewelry or measured, gold or diamonds, you understand what I'm talking about if you've used a scale or a triple beam or a double beam. Same thing with your sticks. If you tend to use the weight of the stick to your advantage, instead of overworking your wrist, you'll feel, now I can already feel the difference. Just going back to the butt of the stick, when I was younger, I played further back like that. And man, I'm already feeling the resistance in my wrist. Like, what are you doing? Go back to the open-handed grip. And all of a sudden, you can just see it in the air. And you can hear it hitting the back of my hand too. And if you notice, some of the greater players can actually play like that with the butt of the stick. And I've noticed this, there's some sticks we made at ProMark back in the day that has 2 tips on it, where you can actually, and if you get good at open-handed grip like that, you can play. And if you watch some of my videos, you'll see I'm actually playing with the butt of the stick and the tip of the stick, because so much freedom has been allowed in open-handed grip. And I'm not crying as much. I'm not laying around at night saying, my wrist is sore, I need to take a hot shower, or I need to wrap it up, or things I used to do I'd really overdo, I'd overcompensate, and then over-treat the injury. So we start putting a lot of emphasis on overworking the muscle or over babying the muscle. muscle. The next thing you know, you've over pampered it, and it's really weak. So it's okay to take care of it, but when you realize that all you're trying to do is play notes, you're not really trying to demolish a house or construct a building, which in a sense it seems that way when you're playing because of all the hammering, but there's more to it than just hammering. You know, it could be painting, it could be stroking, it could be tapping. But a lot of times when we're just playing redundant beats, it seems like it's a constant hammering. When we talk about blasting, like what I'm doing right now, but look how free that is. Look at the hands. Look. The only thing I'm doing is just holding it with basically my pointer and my thumbs almost halfway through the stick. And look how fast it is now. This is so boring. But real drummers and all my subscribers, and in the future for Modern Drummer and Drummers World, and of course Drum History Channel, all the different channels and pages that we love that's connected to Drumeo. That's what this is for, is to share my knowledge and my experience. It's not to brag and say I'm better or I can play better. It's to say this is my experience of how to have more enjoyment and freedom in drumming. Freedom of expression and the ability to play longer without fatigue or looking like it's painful. A lot of times people say, man, I love drums, but man, my hands hurt and I'm sweating all the time and my back hurts. Man, I can't play as fast as everyone else, or the drummer before me is so much better, and there's no way I'll ever play as great as that. Don't let that be the reason you don't play drums. There's a way around it. You know, change your grip up a little bit, or find out where the fatigue was on your back. Maybe raising the throne a little bit, taking a little bit of the stress off your back, and just letting your feet not be so bundled up in a low position, but not at too high of a position. A lot of times, our thrones tend to collapse or go down or spiral down while we're playing. So it's always important to spin them back into place, and my rule of thumb is have the snare about a snare's length of waist from your waist as you're standing. So if you're playing it, it's almost like if you're doing marching or concert, because then it's at that level where it's acceptable. And when you're playing, of course, you can see the sticking comes right above to your chest, okay? So that level's good. And then when I say when you sit down, of course, have it right above your waistline and to where your knees can go below the snare and around your pedals. This is something a lot of us forget to do when we want to get into trying to be the multiple bass drum players. We get into the challenge of being able to fundamentally get around the footboarding. So what have I done is I created a better footscape around the bed of the snare. So the placement of the snare not only gives you your center point, your capacity, a lot of people call it your heart, but in my situation, it's more like the lungs because of the way I place the kit. Okay, so if you look at it like that, if you look at it like I've got two snares in the center as opposed to one on the side, which I still do. What it does is it gives me more freedom of expression through dynamics without having to overextend way over here to the side popcorn snare or a concert snare. I placed it here to the side like this because I can get used to the idea of that is a floor tom that's been converted to a snare or just a floor tom there. So I can play off it with my left hand and get more of the additional low end that we like to get, if you notice, lower, higher, lower, higher, lower, higher, so lower, higher. And that's the idea, that's why I do that. A lot of people don't understand why I do that. So when I'm playing, I could keep doing that same little rudiment over and over into a groove or a beat around the kit with that stick like that. You can see how I just roll it around the kit. And you can see the speed, my speed's a lot better than it was 6 months ago. And I attribute a lot of that to, you know, making the big kit a little easier to play and a little wider. Also making a little more grouped into sound where everything doesn't sound the same. But I've grouped the pitch to where when I play melodically or chromatically, you go up and down and it sounds more musical and not so placky. How do we do that? Well, we tune in groups that are higher. So we did talk about this strike and release technique. And that was the idea. I was trying to get that expression in through lecture and show y'all how that works. These cameras are really great little cameras, but a lot of times I may not explain it as well because of my speech or my mic placement. So we went to efforts to get the mics closer again like I used to have it, and me not to vape too hard so I can at least speak without drooling everywhere first. And there are droolings everywhere. Droolings. But again, if you can see how we do that, and we're doing it, and you can see I do traditional and non-traditional, and I'm getting better at it. But if you want to try this strike release technique for a few weeks, if you're really having problems with fatigue in your wrist or your hands or your fingers or your phalanges or any of that, any of those areas, or if you've been in sports and you got into drumming and you had an injury and it's affected your drumming, try this and you'll feel a relief. If there's already stress, if you try playing like that, you'll say, wow, I don't feel that over there now. And it's actually, I'm using the counterweight to achieve more speed and balance through dynamics and what else? Gravity. And I mean, you know, it's simple. But it's something that, you know, I like to advise people if you're having problems with it, if you've been playing a lot, or you just got back into it, or you're older and you may have things, you know, like arthritis like some of us, or, you know, joint pain, and it's okay. Doesn't mean you can't play. Yeah, you can still play. People don't want to hear you complaining about it. Oh, he's a little pain, he's always a pain. We'll have to replace him with that little 20-year-old girl that plays way better than him. And the kid's a lot smaller and she's tighter. And damn it, she didn't even beat her hands up playing heavy metal. She plays jazz. So he's fired because he cries too much about being in pain all the time. Well, you see what I'm saying? So you find a way around your fatigue. Still do your rudiments, still do your exercises, but lighten up on the grip. Instead of like we used to do, a lot of us in the 80s or 90s, hell, me in the millennium recently. I watched a video of myself several years ago, maybe a decade ago, and I was playing really great, but I could see the pain in my face that was in my wrist and my hands from playing, and my fingers from the blisters. I wasn't wearing gloves. I was holding them real hard. The sticks weren't matched at all or rolled. I was just using whatever sticks I could grab, and I was playing real fast and hard. And for a long time, which is great, but you could tell by watching me that I wasn't enjoying it as much as I do now. I watch the videos now, and it's like, it's a joyful thing. If you can actually enjoy playing drums or piano or guitar or vocals, that's where you're winning with it. If it's something you look forward to do, instead of dreading it, there was a time when, man, I just don't like it anymore. I don't like the music business or the people around it. I don't want to be around it anymore. And I take myself away from it. But with drumming, the drums didn't do anything to it. It's not their fault that, you know, people are assholes sometimes. The drums are not, they cannot take responsibility for other people's actions. It's up to you to make the drums your friend. Or the piano, or the microphone. Sometimes, hearing people say, hey, I can't hear you talk. Well, I got tired of screaming at people, so I made it to where it's almost nearly impossible to hear what I'm saying unless they're really interested in it. Because a lot of people don't like lectures or having to be told how to do something they already know how to do very well, and they've been doing it longer or shorter time than you, and they're very successful at it. Why listen to what you have to say? Because that is an issue a lot of drummers have to deal with. It's fatigue. We get the rest, and your body will rapidly repair itself in a sleep time. Rest is the most important thing for a body to repair itself, especially a musician. Especially those who are in a creative run and they use all their energy to stay up and burn all that magical oil in their mind. But they don't realize until they get older that, man, it's not that important to burn it all up right now. Save some of that mind fuel for the perfect time of essence of creativity and share time. When you're sharing your creative time with another person or a group, a lot of times that is the real magic of music, is bringing a direction or a concept to life through group. So a lot of times people don't understand why it's frustrating for some of those that seem real particular about how they want something. Well, a lot of times people arrange things and put it together to be done as solo effort, but they leave a lot of space for group or other players, and that's what makes it fun. Because I'm saying, hey, even though I make it this way, you're allowed to play it anywhere you want. So giving people their own freedom within your own arrangement or your own musical arrangement or your own idea, letting those folks have fun with it sometimes makes it more fun with yourself, because you're you don't have an expectation. I expect it to be this way, and you didn't do it. Now I'm mad at you, and now the band's broken up. Well, you don't have to do that. You don't have to get mad when you understand what improvisation is, and the real pros do it real well, and when they play together, and some of us watch as just as a fan or as a listener, we wonder, why is it so magical? Well, because they can improv. That's something a lot of people never try to do because they're still trying to read between the lines and stick to what's on the page. The improvisation is where the creative individual takes place with the group or with the soloist. So your improvisational skills can sometimes really excite the listener or determine if they do not like you at all, because your improvisational skills were selfish and did not complement the arrangement or the show. So we need not to forget what it is about. Is it about, my time to go out there and do a bunch of fills or play a cool beat to a song or a melody? So we got to think about that. Is this is this a shred fest, or is this a time for people to, sing and dance? And there's nothing wrong with that. There is a time and place for it. Believe it or not, nowadays, there's more of a time and place for it, especially in wartime, because people want to get their minds off the negative things and sing about things that are fun or things that make them feel a little more strong about their will to survive in times that are hard. So we can put those support efforts through sound and through example, because a lot of times musicians are working harder this time of year because it is the holidays. So if those drummers or those keyboard players or guitar players are really having a lot of fatigue and they've already bought all the little finger exercise devices that you can get, the little grip devices or the squeeze balls or the little picking challenge machines or the stick pads that have the metronomes on it, or the apps that count your beats, or, of course, the fitness apps that you can wear with your phones or your watches. A lot of that will give you the mathematics you need to say, hey, I accomplished my goal today. I'm done with my exercise. Well, organically, we can create those exercises daily and not experience that displeasurable part of drumming that some may experience through playing a lot, which is fatigue. Getting over fatigue, of course, is proper nutrition and rest. And then, of course, the common occurrence of exercise and using the right protection, gloves, socks, shoes, and of course, bandages or any types of wraps if you want to use those in addition to your sticks or your hands or your feet. And then when we're doing a lot of extreme drumming, of course, hyperextending ourselves, you know, trying to do some of the Dom Famarios where we're, you know, we're trying to recreate a ghost and do something that some of our superheroes did in the past that made us think, man, I can do some of these real aggressive moves and do it real cool. But if you're not careful, you will hurt yourself because those are very, you know, these guys have been doing it for decades. I mean, you turn around and try to copy them, you will throw your shoulder out or fall over or break a drum set doing those aggressive moves like that, those hyperactive moves where you really reach up high like that. See how high that is to the right to that cymbal and right to the edge? So see how I do the opposite? This one's to the center of the edge of the cymbal, and this one's to the tip of the edge of the cymbal. And if I reverse it, look. So that's the idea. And then, of course, the pads behind us. So we not only, it gives the look, the visuals, but it creates excitement within the arrangement. So if you really, you bored them out because you got so groovy and so hype with this really crunchy groove, really classy, mature groove, well, sometimes you can get really hype and go up real high on the level of the kit and do these accents within, you know, the Basio stuff or the, like we said, the Dom stuff, if we're trying to be the great Dom and really get up there like the great Dom or the Alex Van Halen's to where they can really hyperextend and really get some accents out of their stacks. It's really fun to enjoy the stacks and to play with them in a level of excitement to where it takes the listener to a level of attention from the groove. You'll be surprised how captivating that is as a player when you see your listener watch you the whole time because they're ready to see you do that next move. And let's give you an example. And we talked about how we did it, and a lot of times it could be from just over gripping, and a lot of times doing the open-handed grip that I've found in the last few months. Watching my playing, it seems more elegant and more free, and I've gotten faster. I used to play a lot slower because I was really holding on to the stick, and then kind of behind the beat, and now I'm just kind of, even if I get ahead of the beat or behind the beat, I can double up the note and get behind a millisecond and get back on the groove. A lot of us have to rely on these tracks and these educational apps that teach us. What's cool about it is they can slow down and speed up, and you can use your clock. But switch up your grips a little bit if you're having problems with fatigue, or if you get tired, or you're just not really feeling it like you used to. if you start feeling that counterbalance swing better, you're like, man, I'm playing better. And when I reach up, you know, and I'm stretching out, then you feel the arm actually flex to its furthest part. When you actually stretch like that, you've gone too far. You don't want to pump it out of the socket. You want it just to flex right to where the stick does the rest of the work. Cool. That's the idea. That does definitely fall under drum lectures for Tuesday hand exercises. And of course, you know, we talk about, you know, choking techniques, but if you watch the open-handed cymbal roll to muting a cymbal, and we'll do that real quick. And it's even easier, you know, we use a stick to get the attack, but you don't want to bend the cymbal, but you want to get a little metallic clank out of it. And by doing that, it allows you to play easier on the muting, because you've already gotten used to the open-handedness. So when you start getting into cymbal techniques, it's easier to play your cymbal techniques by learning this gripping technique that I'm speaking of, which is the open-handed strike and release grip technique, or open-handed grip, or strike and release, and that's when we hit it. And instead of holding it like this, it's coming back like that. And it actually bounces back easier. It's hard to explain it, I forget sometimes, but the idea was to remind people, how did I overcome the wrist fatigue through strike and release and open-handed grip, switching up the grip a little bit, choking up the stick a little bit, and it allowed me to have more speed and less fatigue. And then, of course, we talked about opening up the pedal boards more to where I can get, when we start doing multiple pedals like me, I'll go. Seven or eight pedals back here, so a lot of times I have to remember not to make it too low or too tight, but to make it to where you can get in there and play everything and move around it. And accents the tones instead of tuning everything the same. Tune everything in groups of 3 and 5. It's where the pitches, when we get into whether we're doing triplets or quintuplets or whatever we're doing, if we're counting like that and we're playing those groups, those 3 tones as we move through those groups of 3 or 5 around the kit. When I say that, why do I say groups of 3 or 5? Why is he saying that? Well, because a lot of our drum sets are 3 or 5 piece. So if we're playing in 4 or 2, 1 or 3 or 5 piece kit, what is that? Well, do the math. 4 or 2, 1 or 3 or 5 piece kit. That gives you the idea of what you're playing on, and that's how your notes are with your accents, and of course your counts. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, Start counting like that, so you're playing. So just 5 single notes and 5/4 in a blues shuffle. And a kick on 1 and 3, and you do it like that. Or you turn it around where the kick is on 2 and 5, and then it gets a little more complicated. So that's the idea. Strike release technique and eliminating fatigue and stress through open-handed sticking.